Welcome to China Tech Talk, the almost weekly discussion of technology and startups here in China. I am John Artman, editor-in-chief of technode.com, joined as always by Matthew Brennan, founder of China Channel. So this week we sat down with Ted Hopkins, live from TechCrunch Shenzhen. So Ted is the head of innovation and omni-channel retail at Walmart. And so, we've talked a little bit about kind of from the outside about a lot of the new retail things that have been going on. We've talked about mini programs and kind of how WeChat is being used to sell and to engage with customers here in China. But it was always kind of, from the outside. So service providers, for example, marketers and things like that. But this time we actually got to sit down with someone who not only is using a lot of the things that we've talked about on this podcast, but using them to great success as well. So Walmart's Scan and Go here in China has been very successful for them. And so we get a chance to hear from Ted directly about their thinking behind it, as well as why it's been so successful and kind of what they're looking at in terms of technology to improve the shopping experience here in China. And I have to say that at least for me, one of the biggest things is, of course, with the Scan and Go mini program, that you don't actually need to stand in line, which is I think solving probably the biggest problem that people have in China. Before we get into it, a quick word about TechNode and our newsletters. If you are not subscribed to our newsletters, make sure that you do subscribe as soon as possible, because you are missing out on a plethora of information that is delivered straight to your inbox every single day. That includes a curated summary of technology news in China, including news from us, as well as a curated summary of significant fundings in China. And to subscribe, you can go to technode.com/newsletters. So without further ado, here's Ted Hopkins. So Ted, one of the first questions that we like to ask all of our guests is what's your China story? So, tell us how you came to China and how you got to do what you're doing now.
Sure thing. So the short version is back in 2006, I was looking to live abroad. I wasn't prescient. I didn't realize that China would be the number 2 economy in the world at the time. And when I was thinking about places to live, it was the largest country in the world, and I knew very little about it. So I hopped on a plane and came out, spent a few years teaching and traveling prior to doing my international MBA. Pursued the international MBA through the Moore School of Business in the U.S. with a focus on China, which obviously brought me back out here. And out of the MBA, I was hired by the Home Depot in China, which at that time I think we had 13 big boxes. And at Home Depot, I was asked to take a look at a digital strategy to support the physical retail footprint. Worked on that for a little bit. The Home Depot ultimately went wheels up. So I went from the Home Depot to a company that we spun our business off to Behr Paint, which is another American company. At Behr, I was asked to, of course, continue managing the e-commerce business, but then we pursued a digital-first marketing strategy. So that's where I got into social media, digital marketing, programmatics, et cetera. And probably took my first steps in O2O. We set up a digital recruitment to offline sales program. And from there, I just kept on going and ultimately wound up with my current job at Walmart. So at Walmart now, I've moved through a couple of different roles. I started off, I was actually hired by Yihao Dian. Okay. Yihao Dian, which, and then 2 months, this is pretty funny, 2 months after I was picked up by Yihao Dian, we sold Yihao Dian to Jingdong for a position in Jingdong. And then I was tasked to set up the Sam's Club, which is a Walmart company, the Sam's Club on Jingdong. After setting up Sam's Club, basically I've been moving from program to program, continuing to build out not just the Sam's Club digital ecosystem, but what's now a Walmart digital ecosystem inside WeChat. That's where I am today. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's why we had Ted at our conference earlier this year. So for the listeners who aren't so familiar with, I think everyone's heard of Walmart, obviously, but what's Walmart doing in China? What's the position of the company here? Where are you guys at in number of stores, revenue, or whatever metrics you can share with us?
So Walmart was our early mover on China. Walmart's been in China since 1996 when it opened its first hyper in Shenzhen. We're still headquartered in Shenzhen. Today we have 400 plus hypers, and we're testing a few other offline retail formats. I'd say Walmart, interestingly, Walmart's actually always been an innovator, but and this may be tied to a later question, but it's something that I try to bring up whenever people ask about Walmart and its history. Much of Walmart's innovation has been behind the scenes inside the offline business. Where Walmart as a company in China has been a leader, especially among other international retailers, we were one of the early movers here. We were one of the first international retailers, one of the first companies in China to centralize our supply chain and our logistics. We expanded rapidly, our footprint fairly rapidly in the country. And then we were also in 2011 an early mover in digital with our investment in Yihaodian. The initial investment was a pairing of Walmart's international logistics and Yihaodian's front-end e-commerce. At that time, Yihaodian was the number 3 player. We then upped that investment to 51%, taking a controlling stake of the company. In, I believe, 2015, Walmart outright bought Yihaodian. And then the following year, just after I joined, as I mentioned, it was flipped over to JD, and we took a 9% stake in JD.
What do you think it is? I mean, because as you were saying, Walmart. I mean, I think they've been an innovator in terms of business models, in particular, organizational structures and things like that. Walmart's used a lot in case studies and business schools and things. But like for Walmart, but why China and why do you think they came here so early?
Scale, scope and scale. It is a tremendous economy. I think Walmart has been operating in a number of international markets for years, so it just made sense to dip our toes in the water at the time.
And also, I mean, so just kind of breezing over this kind of a little bit quickly, because I think it's a topic that I didn't know that I was interested in until I was talking with someone from Tesco a couple of years ago. So like just really quickly, like what's the difference you would say between like Walmart's business in the States and Walmart's business in China? Like before you mentioned like hypermarkets, like I never heard of a hypermarket until I came to China. So maybe just briefly kind of explain that.
I think operationally there are more similarities than differences. I'd actually reference Doug McMillon, our CEO, when he was out here for one of his frequent trips to this part of the world. I think it was about 2 trips ago. He remarked that during his first, he's probably been out here more than 15 times. I don't know exactly how many times, but he remarked that probably it's actually up until this year. He said that it was generally operational knowledge that was being transferred from the U.S. to Walmart operations in China. But this year it was the first time that he's starting to see elements of indigenously developed operations in China and ideas being transferred back over to the States.
Yeah, interesting. So in China, we've got Walmart. You guys are aligned with and invested in JD, and you're also working with Tencent as well. How does these partnerships work together? What are the different people involved bringing to the table, and broadly, how does this alliance work in your mind? Yeah.
Broadly, then Walmart with Walmart, you have the world's most sophisticated global logistics and supply chain network. You have a best-in-class physical retail store operator. As I just mentioned, you had Walmart being one of the first, if not the first company to centralize its DC to store supply chain, where the Jingdong connection makes a lot of sense, as Jingdong, at the time that we announced the partnership, is China's most sophisticated last mile operator. So that's just connecting the dots. It gave Walmart a face to customers that we didn't readily have access to via Jingdong's third-party platform, and then it allowed us to take the inventory that we have from our stores, deliver it to customers next day through Jingdong, or within an hour through Jingdong Daojia. So you have Walmart, Jingdong, and New Dada, which is Dada is a crowdsourced delivery, 1 hour delivery provider.
Right, Daojia and Dada are now merged, right?
Right, and so you really just have greater efficiency across all of the businesses as they're operating together. Tencent is something a little bit different, and it's something that's unique in the scope of what Walmart's doing globally. Tencent, you have the simple version is you have an app that's on everybody's telephone with integrated form of payment and a potentially configurable front end in the mini program. Yep. So that's kind of a no-brainer. So now we can go straight to the conversation, if possible, or we can at least engage with our customers where they are in WeChat, and then get our products to them, or get them the products that they're asking for as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and so I guess that's kind of like the next thing that we wanted to look at was specifically WeChat. And so Walmart was one of the first adopters of WeChat mini programs. Now you guys have the scan and go functionality. Explain a little bit about your thinking behind going into mini programs, and what do you think that they're able to offer for yourself and for your customers?
This has actually been a fun journey, and we're still sort of in the middle of the journey. So initially it was a question of where is the conversation happening, and that was social media. We started looking at WeChat in general right around the time mini programs were first emerging. So when mini programs popped up, it was just sort of a light bulb. Hey, what can we do there? What can we play around with there?
You guys must have been on WeChat before then, right? Yeah.
Sure.
The service account.
Yeah, Walmart's our Gongzhonghao, our service account, it's one of the largest service accounts in China. I think today we have more than 20 million followers for our Walmart service account. Sam's Club service account is in the millions as well. Sam's Club, even though Sam's only has, I think, 18 to 20 stores, we have more followers to our service account than we do members to Sam's Club.
I remember when Sam's Club first came to China. I was working at China Radio International, and so a lot of all my colleagues were Chinese, and they were super pumped. Like, oh my god, I can buy like kilograms of nuts now.
So I'm less familiar with Sam's Club. Like for me, that'd be like a Maidalong, right? Metro, similar concept, right? Buying in bulk.
Costco, you know Costco.
Costco. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, sure. So let's continue. So many programs are coming out. You guys were you sort of left it off there, right? Like that you're excited about this new concept.
Yeah. We basically what we did with Walmart and Scan and Go. Scan and Go actually kicked off inside Sam's Club in the U.S. We had an efficient and functional user experience that we then rebuilt from the ground up in China, inside WeChat. The reasons being the aforementioned: you don't have to download the app, you don't have the friction of setting up a new form of payment. The first store that we tested, where we tested Scan and Go, we saw surprisingly good results. I think. What exactly is Scan and Go? Can you just explain that? Sure. Scan and Go is it's a mini program, or in the States it's an app that allows you basically scan the QR codes or the barcodes in our case, of products while you shop. Then you execute your payment inside the mini program. You flash a QR code at a digital monitor as you exit the store, and then you're out. So it's a way of cutting the line.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it was it was conceived as a way to eliminate a friction point. Nobody likes waiting in line. And what we found here in China is how do I say this? It was like absolutely nobody wants to wait in line, more so than in the U.S. In the U.S., you had we saw reasonable adoption. In China, with our first test store, I think on our first day, we saw more than 15% of our customers just shift over from one line to another, which is tremendous. And so then we dug our heels in, worked on the physical user experience, aligned that with the digital user experience, iterated, until we felt like we had a winning product. And then we started scaling in April, scaled from 10 stores to 400 stores in a period of 5 months. And then in September, Ebrun ranked us as the #1 physical retail mini program in China. So that I'd say that's actually a combination of the design and the work that went into UX UI, but the credit really should go to our retail operations, our central operations team, for being able to take a concept from 10 stores and then pushing it across the system so quickly. It's pretty impressive.
Just out of interest, so maybe it's because I'm from London where there's lots of shoplifting going on, but like, how do you see that people are honest? Because you're expecting the customer to essentially, like, they have to show a QR code at the end, but it could even just a genuine misunderstanding of forgetting to scan an item that maybe their child has put in or something like that. How do you resolve those issues, and are they issues at all?
In general, shrink rates in China are not comparable to what we see in other markets, meaning much lower, near negligible.
Why do you think that is?
The culture, honestly, I don't know. I just know that they're much lower. But despite the shrink rates being much lower, we did plan for it. We did budget for it with the expectation that we would bump into, for example, instances of people forgetting to scan or just not really being familiar with how the digital product worked, the experience works. And we took an opposite approach to some of the other markets. We, rather than setting a very, very low threshold for the number of people that we would check in order to maximize the operational efficiency for the business, we decided to step our way down, and we learned a lot. We caught what most of the time it's people just forgetting to scan something, or scanning 1 out of 4 items and having only clicked accidentally 3, or it's just common, it's just basic mistakes. Yeah.
Honest mistakes.
It's honest mistakes, and you can track that. We're able to actually see all of that because most of the customers who have made a mistake actually fix the mistake and complete the purchase. We would be worried, for example, if you see a high rate of individuals who just drop the basket at the front door and say, oops, it's a mistake, but I actually don't want to buy anything. What we see customers who say, oops, I forgot to buy it, and then we complete the purchase, and then everybody moves on.
So, I'm curious. Because can you talk about demographics? Maybe, is there a certain demographic of user that uses this type of the Scan and Go product, or do you find that it's pretty wide adoption?
The demographics for adoption are quite similar to what we see for our basic store customer, our basic hyper customer.
So what is that?
We're skewed more. Our primary customer is a woman in her mid-30s. Mother. There is a slight, it skews, I'd say slightly younger, as you would expect, and interestingly, it skews more male than the Scan and Go program, but it's still predominantly it's a mother, a female, and I'd say one other thing we notice is the basket, the type of shopping that occurs. These are quicker trips. Yeah.
So I mean, so like in terms of, so you have Scan and Go back in the States and other markets, and then you have Scan and Go in China. Is that right? Yeah. So like, I mean, what about like differences in user behavior? I mean, because you said that you had to iterate on the UI and the UX. Can you just talk a little bit about some of the differences between what you might find in like the US version versus the Chinese version?
Well, actually, Walmart in the U.S. Sunsetted Scan and Go due to, I'd say, some friction around adopting the mini program onboarding payment. Just some things that were unique to pushing digital engagement in the U.S. versus China. So I can't make a direct comparison. Scan and Go is still used by Sam's Club in the U.S., but the experience. The experience that I've seen, the last time I probably took a look at it was a few months back, so it hadn't changed much since we had adopted it over here. What I can say though is Scan and Go. We've actually moved past calling it Scan and Go inside Walmart. It's now just the Walmart mini program. So it's Scan and Go plus digital vouchers, plus a platform for hosting omni-channel events. We held it's the Walmart 8/8 Omnichannel Festival. It's August 8th. We held that this year, and inside Scan and Go, we pulled our customers over to a page that displayed to them savings in our offline stores, as well as traffic points to take them to the other Walmart mini programs in the Jingdong Walmart universe. So that was our first truly omni-channel event, and then we recreated that event with some minor changes for Singles Day. You've got digital vouchers, you have an omni-channel traffic platform, you have an in-store experience, and we're testing and playing around with a whole lot of other ideas right now.
Sure. Yeah, so you did put one stat out there, like when you launched it, you had 15% automatically shift over. Have you seen that the adoption rates have, because often I think the cynical people would say, yeah, well, when you launch something, people like, especially Chinese, they like novelties, and people like to try things out that are different and new. But have you seen that engagement and adoption of that purchase channel has increased over time, or is it roughly if you can give any kind of numbers or indication of what's the adoption rate?
In our best performing store, engagement has exceeded 35%. The adoption rate has increased significantly from that number, from the 15% from that first day in the test store.
So
actually,
just a short-term spike.
It wasn't a short-term spike. Yeah, honestly, with one thing you can be sure of with it, if it's Walmart, is if it's not working, it's there. It'll get killed. So we tested it, we tried it. It didn't work, we move on. But this is something that's actually really worked for us. And so we've been making sure that we invest time and resources into improving and strengthening the Scan and Go experience. But what's interesting is I'd say we flipped our view on how we look at the mini program. So rather than just supporting Scan and Go, the mini program supports self-checkout. We're looking for other friction points in the store where we can come up with a digital engagement which might somehow or other reduce that friction. I'd say you can break it into two categories. Features that drive engagement and features that can help that offer more convenience or can influence behavior. So Scan and Go is an obvious way to drive engagement with our customers and reduce friction. The e-vouchers, digital vouchers, that's a way for me to present savings to you in a fashion that is increasingly personalized and will then allow you to hopefully get more out of your experience at Walmart.
And from the back end perspective, okay, so we talked about the customer experience in the store. It's more convenient. Okay, it kind of works. Using an app doesn't really work, but a mini program makes sense. But from your perspective of this change in behavior from 15% moving up to 30, nearly a third of customers using this channel instead of others, what benefit does it give you in terms of data and profiling your customers, and what can you actually do with that?
Well, what I'd say, what the digital, let's call it a digital customer engagement layer. That what this layer allows us to do is it allows us to hopefully lightly provide you with opportunities to engage in areas that you have a natural affinity for. So, for example, you might be a predominantly offline shopper with Walmart, but if, for example, we were to release a delivery service to support home delivery through the mini program, then we might be able to provide you the same convenience that we provide you in the store for products that you'd like to buy online instead. And then if, John, you're a predominantly online shopper, then the same sort of thing could apply. Maybe what we find is that there are products that people want to still head down to the store to see and touch and feel. Yeah. And so while you may primarily buy things online, you may find that Walmart is an easier, more convenient place to shop just because our in-store experience is actually lighter and lower touch, but then gives you that exposure to the products. And then we would try to provide any and all of the services in between, so that eventually you just sort of settle into whatever behavior suits your needs at any given time. And then as you grow and change, we'll be there with various services across the board to grow and change with you. But I'd say it's less of a push and more of it's just a platform. We're just there.
Right. So I'm curious. Official account, subscription account, mini program. So how do you see the differences between all of these, and how do you use them differently? Are they integrated at all? Can they follow a customer in a sense, or is it like very separate kind of things?
If you're shopping with us on Scan and Go, we'll send you'll receive a receipt of your order or a thank you through the Gongzhonghao through the service account. So if you want to communicate with us, we're not there yet, but if you want to communicate with us, you would chat with us through a service account. The mini programs are, like I say, there to reduce friction in the store or get what you want to you when you're not in the store.
Yeah, I guess the coupons would be through the service account, like the personalized coupons a little bit as well, right?
Let me just show you. I can't show people.
It's a podcast, but yeah, okay.
Work. But the coupons are actually they're all in the mini program.
Cool. So we've covered Scan and Go, which seems to have been a big success for you guys. What else what projects are you working on right now? What are you excited about in terms of like bringing technology to the Walmart and Sam's Club experience?
So it's not all directly customer facing. We've been testing and deploying other technologies that are more associate facing or operations related in a number of stores. So let's take image recognition. How can you apply image recognition to store operations? Well, if you have a camera in a cooler or on shelving that allows that can track when an item is taken off or put back on the shelf, then we can maintain more efficient in stocks. Meaning we can maintain the modular integrity, make sure that the shelves are assorted as they're planned to be assorted, and we have products in stock in the right place at the right time all the time. So we're just tracking we're tracking the actual physical products as they come and go off the shelf.
Tracking the customers as they move around the store as well?
Not right now. I think in the U.S. they just deployed something with a shopping cart. But the key focus operationally is right now observing and making sure products are maintained. You could use that same technology, for example, to observe how somebody stops in front of a shelf, picks up a product. If their dwell time, you can essentially analyze the individual. You can probably pull male or female, but analyze whether or not that product or the way that product is presented is being done in an efficient and effective manner.
Yeah, no, it's just it's so interesting, like the amount of data, like how much more we understand about behavior and consumption than we ever did. I mean, like, so of course, you know, for TechNode, we collect a lot of data about our visitors, and it's always kind of this. There's this really interesting kind of tension between, like, as a business, we want as much data as possible, but then, like, as an individual, we're like, oh crap, like, you know, all these companies have so much data on us. So it's super interesting to see, like, you know, how that's actually working. But one of the things that I wanted to ask about was, because we're talking a little bit about like new technologies and things. You know, Walmart has been one of the first like really big corporations to start using blockchain, and I'm so, you know, like I think earlier this year in China, you guys launched like a pork tracking blockchain supply chain kind of system. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about blockchain in particular and how you guys see it, and what do you plan on doing with it?
Well, to be totally honest, my main focus has been customer-facing digital.
Okay.
But I do know that Walmart in China and in the U.S. Is investigating more and more ways to bring blockchain into the system. And the customer-facing piece of that is allowing you to see is traceability. Honestly, what's been interesting to me about this whole journey is with Walmart, really all we're doing is making operations and work that had been put in before more transparent to the customer. Blockchain is just telling the customer the item actually went down the path that Walmart said it took. So in the future, it'll enhance trust, but and I'm sure that fundamentally in some areas it'll improve and enhance efficiencies up and down the supply chain. But it's really just saying in a different way, we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, because you're doing the blockchain stage tomorrow, John. Yeah. So, how about artificial intelligence? You know, how is that affecting your business right now? How are you thinking about that?
I think the U.S. is a little bit further ahead of where we are in China on that one. But in China, we're playing around with machine learning, and that's on the customer-facing side, again, driving personalization, and that should move very rapidly into AI. It's funny, every time I scan and go now, we were just talking about that, it feels so old. It's 5 months ago. And so whenever
I get it so that when they open the scan and go, it's totally personalized.
Yeah, well, we've already started pushing personalized vouchers, digital vouchers through scan and go. So the speed that all this happens is amazing even to me, but it makes it fun. But AI, again, there are applications that are customer facing. There are applications that are back end. Think about the way that the store is assorted. If you were to combine, if you were to physically heat map a store to understand how customers travel throughout that store, and I were to take the profile of the customer who I said is our primary shopper, and we decided we wanted to optimize the store further to suit her needs, then we would likely take an anonymized set of data associated with customers that fit that profile, try to understand how they move through the store, and then we would take something like AI to determine exactly how, when, and where we're going to put products to ensure that we're serving that customer as best as we possibly can.
What about chatbots and things like that? I mean, like chatbots used to be big. They feels like the hype's kind of died down a little bit.
So are we talking about the Gartner hype cycle or the life cycle, or is it the? No, chatbots are still integral to any online sales platform. I think that one would expect to see that more in a pure digital platform than you might see it in store, but that doesn't mean you won't see it in the store. The areas that we're talking about right now and the areas that we're playing around with are, again, things like locating an item. That's a pain point. If you're not a frequent shopper, You got to figure out how to get to the item. Is the best way to do it to type in the name of the item and search for it, and then have us route you to the item, or is it just to speak into your phone and then have the item pop up? Pulling in VoIP and any other technology to speed along that process is going to be tied to it, and then chatbots would certainly be part of that conversation, whether it's typed or it's spoken. Yeah.
Okay, getting towards the end of things, I got two questions. Well, on different topics. One is a side thing, but an interesting thing. Like earlier this year, there was this big hoo-ha about Walmart in Southwest China, right? For our listeners who don't know, in Chinese media, everyone was saying that Walmart was forcing people to use only WeChat Pay, and it was like you had to. And then there was speculation that lots of retailers would follow this lead, and we'd lead to a situation where it was retailers were divided by which payment method they were promoting. So, how much what really happened here?
It's funny when you're on the inside looking out, and then you hear what it sounds like on the outside from the outside looking in. So you have different forms of payment that are competing. So it's Union Pay, Alipay, WeChat Pay. Apple Pay, Jingdong Pay. So everybody out there is competing and incentivizing companies as a part of that competition. I think what you saw was just a combination of Walmart experimenting with a new partner in Tencent and what you might naturally expect to see in a market where there is competition like that. So. Does that make sense, or was that too?
Yeah, it makes sense to me, but I think our listeners might be a little bit like thinking, but fine.
So, well, also the question there is also, a question there is also, so for listeners who haven't been following the story, like how did it end up, and was it only like a regional thing?
It was regional in the Southwest. I think it's still ongoing. But if you were to use Scan and Go, for example, here in Shenzhen, you're presented with as payment options WeChat, the Walmart gift card, and then there's another button for Inlian, for China Union Pay. And if you choose Alipay, of course, is in there too. So if you choose Alipay or Union Pay, you, rather than paying in phone, the digital monitor scans a QR code on your phone, and you're checking out through your normal payment app. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Okay. And a final question for me is like a very, very broad one. Like, where do you see the shopping experience and technology? What are you excited about in the next couple of years? Where are things going? What should we be paying attention to?
That's the question. So my whole team is here today. I don't know if I mentioned this to you guys in the chat, but we decided to do some of our next year planning and have some of our next year planning conversations here because we wanted to be around new ideas and new thinking, smart people. Honestly, I can see 1 year to 18 months out. So if you were to say 5 years from now, that's a really hard question to answer. We've had a number of conversations in our team when we're talking about how to position ourselves, how to talk about ourselves, and where is Walmart 5 years from now? A lot of people ask that question. It's a really hard question to answer. Things that I'm excited about: voice technology, augmented reality, AI. AI is such a broad conversation when it comes to a company that's as large as Walmart. That's a difficult one to really drill into. Every major company think about all of the partnerships that Walmart has kicked off in just the last few years, and the amount of data that's flowed into the business. there's just a tremendous amount that we can do. So I think that within the next year, everyone should expect to see a lot of fun changes to the in-store experience, a lot of which is driven through WeChat. But then there'll be a lot of changes to the in-store experience that you may not see, that are happening, just making the products arrive to you in a more efficient and seamless fashion. And then you'll also see a cleaner bridge between the store and your home. The general objective is just to make the entire Walmart retail experience, wherever that may be and however you define it, more accessible.
Well, sorry, I was just thinking. I mean, so like looking kind of like broader picture then, because there's a lot of different retail. Excuse me. There's a lot of different retail companies out there these days. There's a lot of different grocery stores and things like that. So I mean, like so everyone to some degree is competing to be in your home, or to make sure that there is some brand loyalty. And so one of the ways you can do that is through some of these digital things. But I mean, like, but how do you make sure that people keep coming back? Is it only the discounts? Is it only the personalization? What else is there?
That's another question that I've kind of been, so for me, for Walmart, or for where we're positioning ourselves, I think it's going to be around convenience and quality. So the quality is there. Our customers trust us, and they know that our quality and our pricing is best in the market. So when you have that, it's simply about making access to that more convenient for the customer. I kind of consider the word personalization, or the way that personalization is used, it's almost intrusive. I'm giving you something that's personalized to you, but a lot of times the stuff that I get is not necessarily relevant to me. So what I think that we'd like to work towards is something that, as I said earlier, these are experiences where you should have an affinity for that experience, but I don't think that we would want to throw that in your face. If you're not shopping with us because you think it's more convenient, then we need to change how we're engaging with you.
No, I think we're.
Yeah. So just as a way to kind of finish off, if people want to find you online, where should they go to do that?
LinkedIn, my LinkedIn profile, Ted Hopkins. If they're looking to reach out, that's the easiest thing. I don't have a Twitter handle. I've got a WeChat ID, but I think LinkedIn is probably the easiest thing.
And that's about all the time we have for this episode of China Tech Talk. As always, thank you so much for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, we'd really appreciate it if you gave us a review on iTunes, or you can go to Overcast or Pocket Cast and tap on that star button, and it will recommend this episode to your network. Also, we are on Himalaya and Spotify, so you can find us there if you haven't already. And also a quick reminder, TechNode, we do several newsletters every single day, including a curated summary of technology news in China, including some of the stuff from us, and a thrice weekly newsletter looking at significant fundings over the last couple of days. You can go to technode.com/newsletters to subscribe.